I was banned from Mom's birthday. They laughed until the truth came out. She's my boss. I never thought my own family would turn their back on me. Not like this. Not on Mom's birthday. The text message was still glowing on my phone screen. Cold and final. Don't come tomorrow. We've talked it over, and it's better if you stay away. You'll just make everyone uncomfortable. From my own sister. About our mother's 60th birthday party. I sat in my empty apartment that Friday night, staring at those words until they blurred. 24 hours until the party I'd been planning for months, and now I was banned from attending. The worst part? I knew exactly why. In their eyes, I was the family disappointment, the one who couldn't get her life together, the one who made them all look bad just by existing. Hi, I'm Zara Blackwell, I'm 34 years old, and I live in Millbrook, a small town in Oregon, where everyone knows everyone else's business. Growing up here meant that your reputation followed you everywhere, and mine had been carved in stone since high school. The quiet, awkward girl who never quite fit in anywhere. Let me take you back to how this all started, because the story of that birthday party begins long before the actual day. It starts with my sister Celeste, who's always been the golden child, 2 years younger than me. But somehow she managed to graduate valedictorian, marry her college sweetheart right after graduation, and land what everyone in town considered the perfect life. She had the house with the white picket fence, the successful husband who worked in finance, and twin boys who played Little League and got straight A's. Then there was me. After high school, I'd struggled through community college, worked a series of what my family called dead-end jobs, and spent most of my 20s trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I lived in a small apartment above the old bakery on Main Street, drove a beat-up Honda that was older than my nephew's, and had never been married. In a town like Millbrook, that made me the cautionary tale parents told their children about what happened when you didn't apply yourself. The thing is, they weren't entirely wrong about my past struggles. I had worked at the grocery store, the local diner, even spent a summer doing data entry at the town hall. But what my family didn't know, what nobody in Millbrook knew, was that those jobs had taught me something valuable. They'd taught me how businesses really worked, from the ground up. While Celeste was studying business theory in college, I was learning the reality of profit margins, customer service, inventory management, and what it actually took to keep a company running. 3 years ago, I'd finally saved enough money to take a risk. I'd applied for a position at a tech startup in Portland, about an hour's drive from Millbrook. It was supposed to be temporary, just a way to get some experience in a real office job, as my father put it. But the company was small, innovative, and desperate for someone who understood both technology and practical business operations. Someone who could bridge the gap between the brilliant programmers and the actual market needs. I got the job. Not just any job, I got noticed. Within 6 months, I was promoted to project manager. Within a year, I was head of operations. The company grew explosively, and my role grew with it. But I never told my family about the promotions, the raises, or the increasing responsibility. Why? Because every time I tried to share good news, it was either dismissed or turned into a lecture about how I should be doing more, achieving more, being more like Celeste. When I bought my apartment, not rented, bought, I told them I'd gotten a small raise. When I traded in my old Honda for a reliable but modest Subaru, I said I'd gotten a good deal from a coworker. The truth was, I was making more money than anyone in my family, including Celeste's husband. But I'd learned that my family was more comfortable with their version of me. The struggling, slightly disappointing older sister who made them all feel better about their own choices. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, successfully running operations for a company that was being courted by major investors, and my own family still saw me as the girl who couldn't hold down a job at the local diner. Mom's 60th birthday had been circled on my calendar since January. I'd been planning something special, not just the party, but a gift that would finally show my family that I'd built something meaningful with my life. I was going to tell them about my job, my success, everything I'd been keeping quiet for so long. I thought Mom's milestone birthday would be the perfect opportunity for a fresh start with my family. But 3 weeks before the party, everything started falling apart. It began with a phone call from Celeste. She was organizing the party. Of course she was. And she needed to coordinate with me about my contribution. The way she said it, like she was doing me a favor by including me at all, should have been my first warning. "So Zara, we're planning something really nice for Mom," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone she'd perfected, the one that managed to sound helpful and condescending at the same time. "We've booked the private dining room at Riverside Inn, you know, the fancy place? It's going to be about $60 per person plus drinks and gratuity. Can you handle that?" $60. She said it like it was a fortune, like she was worried I couldn't afford it. The truth was, I'd been planning to contribute significantly more than that. I'd been prepared to pay for the entire party if needed. "That's fine," I said simply. "Whatever you need, great. And Zara, maybe wear something nice? You know Mom likes it when we all look put together for special occasions." There it was. The subtle implication that I usually looked unpresentable, that I needed guidance on how to dress appropriately for my own mother's birthday party. I bit my tongue and agreed. The second incident happened a week later. I'd stopped by Mom and Dad's house to drop off a card and see if Mom needed anything for the party. I found Dad in the living room with Celeste's husband, Marcus, watching football. They were drinking beer and talking loudly, the way men do when they think they're solving the world's problems. "Zara," Dad called out when he saw me. "Come here, settle an argument for us." I approached cautiously. Dad's arguments usually weren't arguments so much as opportunities for him to make his opinions known. "Marcus here thinks that young people today don't understand the value of hard work," Dad said, gesturing with his beer bottle. I told him that's not entirely fair. Some young people work hard. They just don't know how to work smart. "Right. Honey?" The dig was subtle but clear. I worked hard but not smart. I was 34 years old, and my father was still treating me like a child who needed life lessons. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "It's tough out there for people without the right connections or education. I see it all the time in my work. People who are willing to work but just can't seem to break through to the next level." They were talking about me. Right in front of me. Like I was a case study in underachievement. "Well," I said carefully, "I think everyone's path is different. Sometimes what looks like struggling from the outside is actually building something bigger." Dad chuckled. "That's very philosophical, sweetheart. But at some point, you have to have something concrete to show for all that building, don't you? Think?" I left their house that day feeling smaller than I had in years. These were the people who were supposed to know me best, supposed to support me no matter what. Instead, they'd created this image of me as the family member who needed pity, patience, and gentle guidance toward a more successful life. The final straw came 4 days before the party. I was at work, in the middle of a crucial meeting with potential investors, when my phone buzzed with a text from Celeste. I ignored it. This meeting could determine the next phase of our company's growth. But it buzzed again, and again. During a brief break, I checked my phone. "We need to talk." "Call me. Zara, this is important. Call me now." I stepped out of the conference room and called her back, my heart racing with worry. Had something happened to Mom? "Dad?" "Finally," Celeste said when she answered. "We have a problem." "What's wrong? Is everyone okay?" "Everyone's fine. The problem is you." I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking about the party, and I'm worried. You know how you can be sometimes, a little awkward in social situations, and you don't always pick up on social cues. Most of Mom's friends are going to be there, plus Marcus's parents, and some of our friends from high school. These are successful people, Zara. I don't want Mom to be embarrassed. The words hit me like a physical blow. Embarrassed by me? It's not personal. It's just that you don't really fit in with this crowd. And lately, you've been acting kind of secretive and weird. Like you're trying to be someone you're not. I think it would be better for everyone, especially Mom, if you maybe celebrated with her privately instead. You know, just the two of you. I stood there in the hallway of my office building, looking out at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, listening to my sister tell me that I was too much of an embarrassment to attend our mother's birthday party. Celeste, I said slowly. Mom is my mother too. I've been planning for this party for months. I know, and that's sweet. But Zara, be realistic. What are you going to talk about with these people? Your job at the... What do you even do now? Some little office job in Portland? When people ask about your life, what are you going to say? I could have told her right then. I could have explained exactly what I did, exactly how successful I'd become, exactly how wrong she was about everything. But something stopped me. Maybe it was years of being dismissed, or maybe it was the growing realization that my family's image of me was so fixed that they wouldn't believe the truth even if I told them. I'll figure it out, I said. Look, I've already talked to Dad about this, and he agrees. It's better this way, less complicated. You can see Mom the next day, spend some quality time with her one-on-one. They'd talked about me, behind my back. They'd made a family decision to exclude me. That night, I got the text message that started this whole story, the official disinvitation to my own mother's 60th birthday party. I didn't sleep that Friday night. I kept thinking about all the times I'd swallowed my pride, all the times I'd let them underestimate me, all the times I'd chosen peace over standing up for myself. I thought about my mother, who had raised me to be strong and independent, sitting at her party tomorrow night, probably wondering why I wasn't there but too polite to ask. By Saturday morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to crash the party. That would just confirm their opinion of me as someone who couldn't respect boundaries. But I wasn't going to hide anymore either. I was going to show up as exactly who I was, successful, confident, and worthy of respect. I spent Saturday morning getting ready like I was preparing for the most important business meeting of my life. I chose a tailored black dress that I'd bought for company events. Elegant, expensive, but not flashy. I did my makeup carefully, chose jewelry that was subtle, but clearly high quality. I looked in the mirror and saw not the awkward, unsuccessful woman my family expected, but the executive I'd become. Then I drove to Riverside Inn. I wasn't going to the party, but the restaurant had a bar area that was separate from the private dining rooms. I could have a quiet dinner, maybe a glass of wine, and be nearby in case Mom wanted to see me afterward. It felt like a compromise between respecting their wishes and honoring my own dignity. Riverside Inn was exactly as fancy as Celeste had implied. Valet parking, soft lighting, the kind of hushed atmosphere that came with expensive wine and three-figure dinner bills. I gave my keys to the valet, a small luxury I'd started allowing myself, and walked into the bar area. The space was beautiful, all dark wood and warm lighting, with large windows overlooking the river. I chose a table in the corner, where I could see the entrance to the private dining rooms, but wouldn't be immediately visible to anyone coming or going. I ordered dinner and a glass of wine, and tried to ignore the sounds of laughter and conversation, coming from the direction of Mom's party. Every so often I'd recognize a voice. Celeste's laugh, Dad's booming voice telling a story, the sound of a toast being made. It hurt more than I'd expected. About an hour into my solitary dinner, I saw him. Marcus, Celeste's husband, was walking toward the bar with another man I didn't recognize. They were both in suits, looking like they were conducting business even at a family party. Marcus looked slightly uncomfortable, the way he always did when he was trying to impress someone. They sat at the bar, close enough that I could hear. their conversation, but far enough away that they hadn't noticed me. "This is a nice place," the other man was saying. "Good choice for a family celebration." "Thanks," Marcus replied. "My wife's family likes to do things right. Her sister couldn't make it tonight, but that's probably for the best. She's going through a bit of a rough patch right now." My cheeks burned. Even now, I was being discussed as the family's problem child. "That's tough," the other man said sympathetically. "Family stuff always is." "Yeah, she's a good person. Just never really found her direction, you know. Still working entry-level jobs. Can't seem to get her life together. My wife tries to help, but sometimes you have to let people figure things out on their own." I gripped my wine glass so hard I was surprised it didn't shatter. The other man nodded. "Well, hopefully she'll find her way. Some people are just late bloomers." They continued, talking, moving on to other topics, but I barely heard them. I was too busy trying to process the fact that even at Mom's birthday party, even in conversation with a stranger, I was being characterized as the family member who needed patience and sympathy. I was about to ask for my check and leave when I heard the other man say something that made me freeze. "So, Marcus, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me tonight, even with the family celebration. I know these investor meetings can be intrusive." Investor meeting? Marcus worked for a mid-level financial firm. What kind of investor meeting would he be taking at his mother-in-law's birthday party? "No problem at all," Marcus was saying. "Though I have to be honest, I'm still not entirely sure why you wanted to meet with me specifically. My firm handles some decent accounts, but we're not exactly major players in the tech investment space." "Well, that's the thing," the other man said, and his voice carried a tone I recognized immediately. The tone of someone who was about to deliver news that would change everything. "We're not actually interested in your firm's services," Marcus looked confused. "I'm sorry?" "Marcus, I'm David Chen, and I'm the head of venture capital relations for Blackwell Innovations. My company," he was talking about my company, "we're considering a major round of funding, and we always do extensive background checks on all our key personnel. Your name came up as being connected to one of our most valuable employees." I watched Marcus's face change from confusion to curiosity. "I'm not sure I follow." "Your sister-in-law, Zara Blackwell. She's our chief operating officer." The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Marcus stared at David like he'd spoken in a foreign language. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. Zara works. She has some little office job, data entry or something." David pulled out his phone and showed Marcus something on the screen. "This is from our company website. Zara Blackwell, Chief Operating Officer. She's been with us for 3 years and is largely responsible for our growth from a small startup to a company that's about to close a $50 million funding round." I could see Marcus's face from my table. He looked like someone had just told him the sky was green. That's impossible," he said weakly. "She drives an old car. She lives in a tiny apartment. She can barely afford to contribute $60 to tonight's dinner." David looked genuinely puzzled. "Marcus, Zara Blackwell makes more in a year than most people make in 5. She's one of the most respected executives in our industry. The investors specifically wanted to meet with family members, because when someone has that kind of responsibility, their personal stability and family relationships can impact their performance." The explosion happened in slow motion. I watched Marcus's face cycle through disbelief, confusion, and then something that looked like panic. He was realizing that everything he thought he knew about me was wrong. Everything his wife thought she knew was wrong. Everything my family had assumed about my life was completely, utterly wrong. "I need to make a phone call," Marcus said abruptly, standing up from the bar. But David wasn't finished. "Marcus, I have to ask, is there any family tension I should be aware of? Any issues that might affect Zara's focus or stability? Because frankly, she's mentioned feeling unsupported by her family, and that's concerning to us. We've been considering offering her a promotion to vice president, but we need to know she has a solid support system." Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. "A promotion?" he asked weakly. "To vice president of operations. It would make her one of the youngest VPs in the tech industry. The salary bump alone would be, well, let's just say it would put her in the top 5% of earners in the state." I finished my wine and quietly asked for my check. I could see Marcus fumbling with his phone, probably trying to call Celeste, probably trying to figure out how to explain to his wife that they'd just disinvited the most successful member of their family from their mother's birthday party. As I was leaving, I heard David say one more thing that made me smile despite everything. "You know, Marcus, Zara specifically requested that we keep her professional life private from her family. She said she wanted to be valued for who she was, not what she did for a living. That kind of humility is rare in someone with her level of success. You should be proud to have her as family." I walked out of Riverside Inn that night, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Vindicated. My phone started ringing before I even reached my car. Celeste, of course. I let it go to voicemail. Then Marcus called, then Dad, then Celeste again. I drove home in peace, ignoring the increasingly frantic calls and text messages. I had some thinking to do. The messages, when I finally listened to them hours later, were exactly what I'd expected. Celeste, panicked and confused. "Zara, call me back. Marcus told me some crazy story about your job, and I don't understand what's happening." Dad, blustering and defensive. "Honey, if what Marcus is saying is true, then we need to talk. There's been some kind of misunderstanding." Marcus, apologetic and desperate. "Zara, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Please call us back. Everyone at tea. The party is asking about you, and I don't know what to tell them." I didn't call them back that night, or the next day. Monday morning, I went to work like normal. David Chen stopped by my office around 10. "I hope you don't mind," he said. "But I met your brother-in-law this weekend." I looked up from my computer. "I heard. How did that go?" "He seemed surprised by some information about your role here." I laughed, and it felt good. That's one way to put it. "Zara, I hope I didn't overstep. But when he started talking about you like you were some kind of charity case, I felt like I had to set the record straight. Families should support each other, not tear each other down." "You didn't overstep," I assured him. "Actually, you probably did me a favor." That afternoon, I finally returned one of the dozens of calls from my family. I called Mom directly. "Zara, sweetheart," she said, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were going to. I didn't know you weren't invited until after you didn't show up." "It's okay, Mom." "No, it's not okay. It's not okay at all. And now Marcus is telling us all these things about your job, and I don't understand why you never told us." I took a deep breath. Because every time I tried to share good news, it was dismissed. Every time I achieved something, it was explained away or minimized. It was easier to let you all think what you wanted to think than to keep fighting to be seen. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "We failed you," Mom said finally. "We failed you as a family, and I failed you as a mother." "Mom, no. Let me say this. I raised you to be strong and independent, and then I stood by while your father and sister treated you like you were weak and directionless. I should have seen what was happening. I should have defended you." We talked for 2 hours that day. Really talked, in a way we hadn't in years. I told her about my job, my success, my plans for the future. I told her about the loneliness of achieving everything I dreamed of, but having no family to share it with. I told her about the apartment I'd bought, the promotions I'd earned, the respect I'd gained in an industry that didn't give respect easily. And she listened. Really listened. The conversation with Dad was harder. He was defensive at first, then confused, then finally something that might have been proud. "Why didn't you tell us?" he kept asking. "Why did you let us think?" "Because you weren't ready to hear it," I said. "You had an image of me that made you comfortable, and challenging that image was exhausting." Celeste was the most difficult conversation of all. When she finally reached me, 3 days after the party, she was angry. "You made us all look like idiots," she said, without preamble. "I didn't make you do anything," I replied calmly. "You chose to exclude me from Mom's party based on assumptions you never bothered to verify." "You lied to us." "I never lied. I just didn't correct your assumptions. There's a difference." "You let us think you were struggling." "No, Celeste. You needed to think I was struggling. It made you feel better about your own choices. It made you feel superior and needed and important. If I had told you the truth 3 years ago, would you have believed me?" The silence on the other end of the line was answer enough. "I'm successful," I continued. "I'm respected in my field. I make more money than anyone in our family. I own my own home. I have a retirement plan, and I'm about to be promoted to vice president of one of the fastest growing companies in the region. I am not the person you thought I was." "But why?" she asked. And for the first time, she sounded more hurt than angry. "Why didn't you trust us with the truth?" "Because the truth didn't fit the story you wanted to tell about your family. You needed to be the successful one, the one who had everything figured out. And that was fine with me, until you decided that my existence was embarrassing enough to exclude me from our mother's 60th birthday. We didn't speak for 2 weeks after that conversation, but the story doesn't end there, because the best stories never end with just the revelation. They end with transformation. 3 weeks after Mom's birthday party, my family asked if they could take me to dinner. All of them, Mom, Dad, Celeste, and Marcus. They wanted to celebrate my upcoming promotion, they said. They wanted to make things right. I agreed, but I chose the restaurant, the same place where Marcus had learned the truth about my life. It felt appropriate. We sat in the main dining room this time, not hidden away in a private room or tucked into a corner of the bar. We sat at a table by the windows, visible and present and together. The dinner was awkward at first. No one seemed to know how to talk to me now that they knew who I really was. Dad kept asking questions about my job that he should have asked years ago. Celeste kept apologizing for things that couldn't be taken back. Marcus looked like he wanted to disappear entirely. But Mom, wonderful Mom, finally broke the tension. "You know what I realized?" she said, looking directly at me. "I spent 60 years of my life, and I raised 2 daughters. One of them I was always proud of because she did exactly what I expected her to do. The other one I should have been proud of because she exceeded every expectation I ever had, but I was too blind to see it." She raised her wineglass. "To Zara, who built something amazing while the rest of us weren't paying attention." The toast was small, private, not like the grand celebration they'd planned for Mom's birthday. But it meant more to me than any party could have. After dinner, as we were walking to our cars, Celeste caught up with me. "I need to ask you something," she said, "and I need you to be honest." I waited. "Are you happier now? Now that we know the truth?" I thought about it for a moment. "I'm not happier because you know the truth," I said finally. "I'm happier because I finally stopped hiding from it. I spent so much energy trying to be small enough that you wouldn't feel threatened, trying to be unsuccessful enough that you wouldn't feel bad about your own choices. That was exhausting. I never asked you to do that. You didn't have to ask, but you didn't have to exclude me from Mom's party either." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I know you are. Can we try again? Can we be sisters? Who actually know each other?" I looked at this woman who had been my closest companion as a child, my biggest critic as an adult, and my family no matter what. Despite everything, I loved her. I had always loved her. Yes, I said. But it has to be different this time. You have to see me as I actually am, not as who you need me to be. That was 6 months ago. Things aren't perfect with my family now, but they're real. Dad still occasionally gives me advice I don't need, but now he also asks for my opinion on business decisions. Celeste and I talk regularly, and while our conversations are sometimes tense, they're honest. Mom and I have grown closer than we've been since I was a child. The promotion came through, just like David had said it would. I'm now the youngest VP in my company's history, and last month we closed that $50 million funding round. My salary is public record now as part of our corporate filings, which was an interesting conversation starter at the last family gathering. But the most important thing isn't the title or the money or even the vindication. The most important thing is that I stopped apologizing for my success. I stopped making myself smaller to make other people comfortable. I stopped letting other people's limitations define my possibilities. The truth is, I could have told my family about my success at any point over the past 3 years. I could have corrected their assumptions, challenged their perceptions, demanded the respect I deserved. But I was afraid that even the truth wouldn't be enough to change how they saw me. Afraid that they would find new ways to diminish what I'd accomplished. In the end, it took a stranger at a bar to do what I'd been too scared to do, for myself. To insist that I deserved to be seen and valued for who I really was. I still live in Millbrook, but now I commute to Portland in a car that reflects my actual financial situation. I still have the same apartment, but I've renovated it into something that makes me happy, rather than something that met other people's expectations of what I could afford. I still work hard, but now I also allow myself to enjoy the fruits of that work. And sometimes, when I'm driving through town or shopping at the local grocery store where I used to work, people look at me differently. Word gets around in small towns, and the story of the local girl who became a tech executive has become part of Millbrook's folklore. Some people seem proud, like they always knew I had it in me. Others seem resentful, like my success somehow reflects poorly on their own choices. But I don't live my life for their approval anymore. I don't make myself smaller to make them comfortable. I am exactly who I am, successful, ambitious, kind, and worthy of respect. The last time I saw Mom, she told me something that I think about often. She said, "You know, Zara, I always worried that you were too quiet, too willing to fade into the background. I thought it meant you lacked confidence. But I realize now that you weren't lacking confidence. You were building it. Quietly, steadily, without needing anyone else's permission or approval. That's not weakness. That's strength." She was right. All those years when my family thought I was struggling, I was actually becoming exactly who I was meant to be. I was learning that success isn't about other people's recognition or approval. It's about building something meaningful, something that reflects your values and your vision for your life. I was building a life that was entirely my own. And when they finally saw it, when they finally understood what I'd accomplished, it wasn't because I'd changed to meet their expectations. It was because I'd stopped expecting them to see me before I was ready to be seen. The birthday party I was banned from turned out to be the beginning of something much more important than a family celebration. It was the beginning of my family, finally meeting the person I'd always been, but had been too afraid to show them. And that, it turns out, was worth celebrating after all.